It's all supposed to happen tomorrow. The big, beautiful bill may be up for a vote in the House of Representatives, and we are starting to see signs of a breakthrough that could deliver the requisite votes for passage.
We're thrilled to predict that late tonight we will successfully vote one big, beautiful reconciliation. This is a balancing act, one that the president personally engaged in, that balances reduction in taxes, reduction in spending, and avoids a government shutdown all in one package. I believe we're going to have 100% or nearly 100% of all Republicans voting for it.
That was San Diego area Congressman Darrell Issa, and of course, President Trump has an electoral mandate. The way Congress has been in freeze frame all year, this is the last best hope for any legislative victories. And with control of the White House and both houses of Congress, there are no excuses anymore. We can't blame the Democrats for lighting Tesla dealerships on fire, getting arrested at ICE detention centers, and crying alligator tears for fired bureaucrats on this one. The red team must come together. On this program, we stand in solidarity with the fiscal hawks, who are rightly deeply concerned about heading to a $50 trillion debt. Representative Keith Self said it with a certainty.
This bill only slows down the growth of the debt. And even if we get this bill right, we're going to go from $36 trillion in debt to $50 trillion over the next few years.
I've been talking to my former colleagues on Capitol Hill all day, and the big deal comes down to these issues. First, SALT. This is the state and local deduction from federal income taxes. New York and California Republicans want this deduction. Trump eliminated it during his first term. Leading the fight to reestablish this tax welfare for people living in blue states is New York Congressman Mike Lawler. And as you can see here, he's a very serious person.
Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Hassan Pfeffer Incorporated. We're gonna make it.
We are indeed being governed by the theater, kids. End it, Mike. Just end it. That's what Trump reportedly said to Lawler yesterday. We're hearing that this issue may be resolved by raising the SALT cap to $40,000 for those making less than $500,000 a year. All sides will probably grumble with this compromise, which may mean it's okay as a place to land. OAN's John Hines pressed GOP lawmakers on whether SALT is still a sticking point for bill passage.
The president's point yesterday in conference was, look, the specific details of a SALT deduction are not going to outweigh this broader picture of making sure that we've got common sense tax reform for the American people.
I hope, any kind of resolve on the SALT issue is something that's going to be acceptable to the New York members, as well as I know there's some members from California that were watching it very closely. I hope that it doesn't push anybody off the back of the wagon.
The best way to pay lower taxes in New York and California is to cut taxes in New York and California, not to have the people of Florida and Texas and Tennessee subsidize the high taxes in New York and California. The second issue is Medicaid. Time and again, you've heard lawmakers talk about the need to make changes to the Medicaid program on our show.
They pass all these vague laws like Obamacare. They create a lot of loopholes, and they put stuff in mandatory spending, which is automatic spending, which they know Congress is never going to look. And then they issue rules that cost us hundreds of billions of dollars to funnel money to their special interest group in New York, to like hospital cartels. They cut benefits for the most disadvantaged people that Medicaid needed to be, but then put money on top, and they pretty much is like unlimited credit line. They just
that just sounds like money laundering.
Cutting benefits, but billing at private insurance rate costs hundreds of billions of dollars.
We have a whole lot of able-bodied adults that are not contributing to society, not contributing to the economy, and are collecting government checks.
The people that truly need Medicaid, we're focused on making sure that that program, if anything, is lifted up and made sound for the people that are the vulnerable population, the aged, the blind, the disabled. To make sure that it's available for them, we've got to get, frankly, I call them the deadbeats, the people that are the young, able-bodied, working-age adults that should be out there working and contributing, but for whatever reason are not. Going back to Clinton-era work requirements, I think that I think it's common sense. It's something that we need to return to.
Trump doesn't want to impact Medicaid benefits, but he has instructed Congress to focus on fraud, waste, and abuse, and there's a ton of it. There are also work requirements needed in Medicaid, but they don't start soon enough in this bill. Republicans do a disservice to their voters by pushing major reforms beyond the Trump presidency. I believe that the best way to root out the fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid is to send more of the programmatic features to the states and get DC's strings off the money. Some states would fail, some would succeed, and best practices would be copied. There doesn't seem to be a fundamental change in benefits for Medicaid recipients under the current draft of the legislation. This could be tinkered with until the final vote, which could be expected late tonight or tomorrow. The third main issue is the Green New Deal tax credit system. Trump has correctly called this the Green New Scam, and we see why. Biden's legislation disrupted energy markets, destroyed farmland, made fuel and heating unaffordable, and for what? So billionaires in private jets could lecture you and your family about the campfire you have in your backyard? The current bill slashes about half of these absurd credits. Texas Congressman Chip Roy and others want it to go farther, but that could face challenges in the Senate, where moderate Republicans are actually supporting some of the Biden-era policies, as Senator John Kerr explained on CNN.
There are some provisions in the IRA that I feel like are actually Republican priorities. Carbon sequestration, nuclear. And so I've simply urged my fellow Republicans to be thoughtful and to not come in with a sledgehammer, but to come in with a scalpel.
Tragedy did strike the congressional family last night. Democrat Congressman Jerry Connolly has died. This leaves his seat vacant and alters the number of votes needed to pass President Trump's bill. Joining us now, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity, Tim Doescher. So, Tim, we're getting word from Speaker Johnson that he's met with some of the remaining holdouts on this Republican legislation. It is where they have placed all their marbles. What issues are you watching to see worked through?
I think the key word here is economic growth. I mean, that is the one thing that President Trump campaigned on time after time after time last year on the trail. And I think that the provisions in this bill are going to have to do that. And so what we're looking at right now is what are the drivers of the economic growth in this bill? We've got tax cuts, we've got expensing, we've got reduction in spending, a little bit of reduction in spending. And I think that's kind of a hiccup that we're kind of focusing on right now. But you take all that stuff, you take no tax on tips, you take no tax on Social Security. This is all money that leaves the government and goes back to the people the way it should be, in our opinion, driving growth, driving investment. The other one, I forgot about it, the small business tax. We're going to up that deduction that they take from 20 to 23%. That's a big deal for small business growth, and we know that small businesses drive this economy. So when we're looking at the big thing, it's growth, and I think that it's coming together, and I think that they're going to come up with a deal very soon.
There's something so telling about the fact that the tax issue is emerging as really the hammer to get people to vote yes. I assumed at the beginning of this Congress that people would be really pushed to vote for this bill based on the border provisions, right? The border was so central to the campaign. Securing the border unites the most conservative Republican and even some of the most liberal Republicans. But Trump fixed the border so quickly, turned the caravans around, established operational control, and I don't really hear that in a lot of the frontline messaging. It's exactly what you said. It's that people are being told if you don't vote for this bill, it's going to result in a massive tax increase because a lot of those Trump tax cuts that drove the economy are going to expire. So all the things you said seem to be achieving broad agreement, right? The expensing, the rates, the ability to bring capital back here. What is the sticky wicket is the SALT issue. This notion that in red states, we ought to supplement the bad tax decisions in blue states. And what makes it politically challenging is that a lot of the majority makers are in New York, California, some Republicans scattered around Illinois. How are you thinking about the SALT question and how it impacts that growth analysis you just walked us through?
Why would red states subsidize bad policy in blue states? And that's what SALT did. It's the most costly thing in that bill at this point, other than, again, I don't want to talk about how we're not taking on the massive spending. I agree with a lot of the folks on the right who are holding this up to say we need to focus on this. But when you're talking about, quote unquote, paying for this bill, that's the SALT thing has really the big thing. In 2017, it saved us $1 trillion. It was the thing that got us across the finish line to pass it because we continued to subsidize these massively outrun, terribly performing states where people are moving out, they're losing their tax base. So all they have left to do is increase regulation and increase taxes. And so they desperately needed that deduction. Now, here's the problem now. Because of the TCJA, not many people are doing itemized deductions anymore. You got 91% of America who is now taking the standard deductions. That's me included, by the way, my wife and I included. We don't have to we don't have to look at our receipts and look at our deductions. All we do is take the standard deduction because President Trump is flattening out that tax rate, that tax base. We are on our way to a flat tax here. And that's the fairness that we are contrasting. I think Americans get it. President Trump brought them into the tax conversation by saying you shouldn't have tax on your tips. You shouldn't have tax on your Social Security. So when you're talking about why is America talking about tax, it's because President Trump brought them to the table when nobody else would. And I think that's a huge part of this bill. And we're seeing that. I think people do understand the SALT deduction fight that's going on. And I think that they're in the corner of those who say, we gotta rein that in a lot.
Another big flashpoint is how to approach the Green New Deal tax credits that are being massively deployed on Wall Street, disrupting energy markets, I think negatively impacting growth in a lot of ways. But we've heard moderate to liberal senators like John Curtis in Utah saying, well, maybe we want to keep some of this carbon capture credits. And you've even got some of the Northeastern Republicans saying, well, maybe not all these Green New Deal tax credits need to be repealed. How does Unleash Prosperity think about those? Does it need to throw it all out, or are some of those tax credits worthy of keeping in the Trump budget?
Look, the bottom line is that there is no green energy deal unless there are subsidies. As Art Laffer famously said, you want less of something, subsidize it. That is what's happened here. Is we've completely taken any sort of green energy off of this could be profitable, this could be something that works, because now everybody's just relying on subsidies and they're upping the price, making it way more expensive and way more. And by the way, the technology isn't even there yet. So if you're asking me if we supported the Green New Deal or anything in it, the answer is an unequivocal hell no. We want that thing.
You sound like all the Republicans when they campaign, but then they get elected and some lobbyist comes and talks to them, oh, this is really valuable, and then they latch onto it and makes it more challenging for people. And so you laid out the doctrine correctly. There's another area where that exact same pattern is playing out, and it's on Medicaid work requirements. I've seen so many Republicans run on work requirements as part of their messaging, and now they want to say that they passed work requirements, but start the work requirements after Donald Trump leaves office. Does that seem sincere to you?
Yeah, well, no, it doesn't. And the thing is they have all the cover in the world. President Trump went on the Hill yesterday and said, waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not touching anything else. Waste, fraud, and abuse. And guess what? There are millions of people that are getting Medicaid that should not be getting Medicaid. And let me tell you something, Matt, that right there is something that America is woke to at this point. We have come to life on this issue. We understand that, and it doesn't make sense, because what we say is that if you want better health care, better Medicaid, then you got to get the people who are not supposed to be on there off of it. There's only so much money that can cover that. And so anybody that's trying to say, oh, we don't want to touch Medicaid, they're being scared. And I'm telling you something, President Trump went to the Hill yesterday and showed them you don't have to be scared, because look, I'm taking it I'm giving you the messaging right now. Waste, fraud, and abuse, it's something everybody gets.
Yeah, if all you targeted was the waste, fraud, and abuse in the Medicaid program, it would be a target-rich environment like you were a mosquito at a nudist colony. And I think they could do a lot more than they've done so far on some of that. Tim Doescher, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity, thanks so much for joining us on the program and sharing your expertise.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey folks, Matt Gaetz here, host of The Matt Gaetz Show. Want to catch every episode of my primetime talk show? Just sign up for the OAN Live app and join me Monday through Friday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, for real news, real talk, and the behind-the-scenes info that you want. Stay informed, stay engaged. Go to live.oann.com. That's live.oann.com. Sign up today. Tune in every weeknight.